Yeah, again, we're learning the 10th parak. Again, I just want to share with you a kasha that I have. In other words, there's something that's very ambiguous about the parak that I'm not sure how you describe it. On one hand, the Zohar seems to be creating the idea that certain times of day are governed by the Sefiros, meaning there are certain times of day of chesed, of gevurah, and when you're doing activities, you're connecting to the light that comes in at that particular time of day. That seems to be the overall cheshbon that the Ramak is making. On the other hand, there also seems to be the implication that by doing the activity, you're connecting. I mean, let me give you an example. We say Shachris is the time of chesed. And then after Shachris, when you learn Torah, you're connected to Teferis. And then Mincha is the time of Yitzchak, Gevurah. So when you daven Mincha, you're connected to Gevurah. My question is, are you connected to Chesed because that is the dominant sphera of the hour, or are you connected to Chesed because you're davening Shachris? I mean, if you're telling me, after Shachris, I connected to Teferis by learning. Well, what if I learned before Shachris? In other words, is it inherently certain times of day are governed by the Sefiros? Or the Sefiros are activated by whatever you happen to be doing at that time of day? Meaning, is learning between 9 and 1, do I connect it to Teferis because Teferis governs the hours of 9 and 1? Or Teferis is activated whenever I learn Torah? In other words, what I'm saying is there's a little bit of an ambiguity, and that is there are parts of Perek Yud that seem to indicate that certain hours are governed by certain Sefiros. And then there are other parts that seem to indicate it's the activity that you do that's makasher to the sphere. So again, I'm not entirely clear how to understand those two things. Yeah?
When the activity flow out from the time of the day, like the reason I daven Shachris in the morning is because that is the time of chesed?
That would seem to be the case, but let's take learning. Learning, I guess, is the main example, because you're correct. Shachris and Mincha have times. So I understand what you're saying makes perfect sense, that the tefillos are connected to the times of the day, because that is the particular divine light. But something like learning is not connected to a time of day. So it seems to be whenever you learn, you're linking to Teferis. So it doesn't seem to be something connected to particular hours. That's what bothers me a little bit. Okay. Yeah.
How are you going to go about researching
How am I going to go about research? I don't have any particular way of doing it. I think about it, and you can think about it, and see what you come up with. I don't know if it's not everything can be researched in the sense of finding a definite answer. But you think about it and try to figure out how this might work. Again, I do want to point out, as I said many times already, that the Tomer Devorah is extreme. There are many Kabbalistic ideas in the Tomer Devorah, but they are extremely abbreviated. They are not really fully explained, because the Ramak wrote huge svarim of Kabbalah, and in which many, many things are explained at much, much greater length, and he sometimes even just says, you can check in those other books. Okay. Now, the basic idea is, once again, though, in terms of tefillos, it's a fairly simple structure. We have Shachris is the prayer of Avraham Avinu, and the dominant sphera is Chesed. Mincha is the prayer of Yitzchak, and you are makasher yourself to Gevurah. And again, as I said yesterday, what is the benefit of tying yourself to Gevurah? Isn't Gevurah something you want to avoid, get away from? On one level, yes, but on the other level, remember what Gevurah is. Gevurah withholds and shapes the chesed so that you're able to receive it. So yeah, there is a makam for gevura in my ability to receive God's chesed. Otherwise, the chesed is like this unending. Sometimes I remember from my early years, Lucille Ball, etc., about an ice cream machine. I don't remember the whole detail, but some type of machine that just kept on producing ice cream, and she couldn't shut off the machine. So like the room got filled with it, and just kept on going and going and going and going and going, and there was no way to contain it, no way to direct it, no way to control it. I don't know, maybe it's the pictures of my youth, but whenever I think of this idea of the need of Devorah, I always think of the ice cream machine that you can't shut off. Hashem's chesed would overwhelm us. Hashem's chesed would destroy us. We could not exist as individuals without Hashem holding back some of the light. And therefore, it's wrong to look at Devorah as only punishment and retribution. It's shaping and boundaries and tailoring the chesed in a manner that I'm able to be makabel, etc. So that's what Mincha is. Mincha, you're makasher yourself with Devorah. Now, let me just, and of course, Maariv, we're going to move into the night now, is Tiferes, beauty, and is connected to Yaakov. So now let me share with you a little bit of a digression, but it's a machshava from Rav Tzadok about the following idea. We say that Avram Avinu was Mesakein, the prayer of Shachris. Yitzchak was Mesakein, the prayer of Mincha. And Yaakov Avinu was Mesakein, the prayer of Maariv. Now, you understand, of course, this does not mean they wrote the text of Shemona Esrei. They certainly did not write the text of Shemona Esrei. The text of Shemona Esrei dates from the Anshe Knesset Hagdola at the time of the second Beis Hamikdash. In fact, even during the first Beis Hamikdash, people did not have a Shemona Esrei. So when we say the Avais were Mesakein Tefillah, you understand, we don't mean the Nusach as we have it, but the notion that you pray to Hashem in your own words, as long or as short as you wanted to, morning, afternoon, night. So that's principle number one. The tefillahs come from the Avais. Now, principle number two is, we actually paskin that Shachris is a chiyuv and Mincha is a chiyuv. But Tfilas Arvis, Maariv, is a reshus. Maariv is an optional prayer. Now, right away, I don't want you to come back, don't go to Maariv tonight because, hey, it's optional. I'll skip it. Two things about this. First of all, when we say Maariv is a reshus, we mean the Amida is a reshus. Kriya Shema and the Brachos is absolutely a chiyuv. That's point number one. Point number two is that even if originally it was a reshus, because it became a minhag that was makubal in Klal Yisrael, it absolutely is a chova today. So nobody can use reshus as an excuse not to daven Maariv. But 1,500 years ago, you might. 1,500 years ago, you could say, I'm not going to daven Maariv tonight. I'll say Kriya Shema and the Brachos. I don't have to daven Maariv because it's a reshus. So frekt Rav Tzadok the obvious contradiction. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Shachris, Mincha, Maariv. Avram's prayer is an obligation. Yitzchak's prayer is an obligation. Why would Yaakov's prayer be optional? Yaakov, in many ways, is considered to be the greatest of the Avos, precisely because of Tiferes. Avram had a Yishmael. Too much chesed. You get a kid who's bad teeth. Yitzchak, Gevurah, has an Esav. Yaakov Avinu, that is the mizug, the combination of chesed and Gevurah. Mitaso Shalema, all of his children, are part of the holy nation. On Hashem's divine throne, there is engraved the face of the ideal person. That is said to be the face of Yaakov Avinu. Chakuk, engraved on the Kisei HaKavod. So Rav Tzadok asks the obvious question, why should Yaakov's tefillah be inferior to the tefillah of Avraham and Yitzchak? Why should Maariv be a rishus? Yeah, today it's a chiyuv, but originally it was a rishus. So let me first give you a teretz of the P'nei Yehoshua. Very interesting teretz. A little word about the P'nei Yehoshua. I digress with some biographical information. I hope you are familiar with the P'nei Yehoshua. I don't know if you've all heard of the Sefer P'nei Yehoshua? Is it on the shelf? I don't know. Okay. P'nei Yehoshua is an amazing sefer. It was written in the 1600s by the Rav of Frankfurt, who was considered to be the Gadol Ador, ad kedei kach, that when he died and he left an instruction that no hespedim should be given for him, the Noda B'Yehuda, Vaya said, I'm not going to listen to him because he's the Gadol Ador. It's a paradox. The greater you are, the less we listen to you. He says, for the Gadol Ador, we give hespedim even if he didn't want hespedim or whatever it is. So for the Noda B'Yehuda to call the P'nei Yehoshua the Gadol Ador, where the Noda B'Yehuda was way up there, shows you how great the P'nei Yehoshua was. The P'nei Yehoshua wrote the sefer on a number of Masechtas of Shas, and he had a very interesting agenda, although it's not the only thing he does. But one of the things he wants to do is he wants to answer all of the kashas that Tosfos asks on Rashi. He is one of the great defenders. Again, it's not the only thing he does, but one major thing that he does is when Tosfos asks a bunch of kashas on Rashi, so how will Rashi answer it, right? So, the P'nei Yehoshua is a place to look. And in the Hakdama to the P'nei Yehoshua, he actually writes why he dedicated himself to this. And that is, he was in a courtyard with a lot of houses. The houses were wood. And in Europe, it happened quite a lot, that because all the houses were wood, if one house caught fire, often a whole city was destroyed. I mean, it happened more than once, among Yidden, among Goyim too. So the P'nei Yehoshua was caught in a burning courtyard. He had no escape. And he felt very certain that he was going to die. And he made a neder to Hashem. He said, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu will allow him to live, will save his life, he will dedicate himself to defending Rashi and answering Rashi and devoting himself. And he writes that all of a sudden, in the middle of, he was surrounded by fire and smoke. All of a sudden there was an opening through the wood that he was able to walk out. And he fulfilled his neder. But it's brought down, although this is not in the Hakdama, that he didn't want to write anything until he had learned through Shas 36 times straight. Because he wanted to be absolutely sure that any statement he makes is not going to be contradicted by any Gemara or any Rashi because he's defending Rashi. So if what he says is contradicted by a Rashi somewhere, it wouldn't be good. So it says he actually learned, I'm sure he had learned Shas many times before then, but he had learned Shas 36 times straight before he wrote a single word in the P'nei Yehoshua. So the emes is, the P'nei Yehoshua was in the 1600s, and that was way before Rav Tzadok, who was in the 1900s. But the P'nei Yehoshua asks Rav Tzadok's very question, right? What's the question? How can we say Maariv is a rishus if Tfilas Arvis was enacted by Yaakov Avinu? Right, this is the P'nei Yeshua's question that is later asked by Rav Tzadok as well. So the P'nei Yeshua gives a very interesting pilpulistic answer. He says there's actually two machloksim in the Gemara that the Gemara never connects. Machlokas number one is, there is a machlokas. Are the three tefillas because of the avos, or the three tefillas because of the korbanos? Meaning that which I said, Avram is Shachris, and Yitzchak is Mincha, and Yaakov is Arvis, which the Ramak obviously goes with too. That's not the only opinion in the Gemara. There's an opinion in the Gemara that says tefillos were designed to replace or be a substitute for the korbanos of the Beis Hamikdash. So Shachris is Keneged, the korban tamid of the morning. Mincha is Keneged, the korban tamid of the afternoon. And Maariv, there were no korbanos at night, but Maariv was, if there were any leftover fats or organs from the tamid that were not burnt, they would burn them throughout the night. So that's machlokas number one. Are the tefillos because of the avos, or are the tefillos because of the korbanos? That's machlokas number one. Machlokas number two is arvis a chayva, or arvis is a rishus? We paskin it's a rishus, as I said, but there is an opinion that says arvis is a chayva. Now these are two different machlokim, and the Gemara never says they're connected. They're different dafim. The P'nei Yehoshua wants to be mechadesh that they are connected in the following way. If you hold tefillas are because of korbanos, then Maariv will be a rishus. Why is that so? Because like this, the korban tamid of the morning had to be brought, so shachris is a chayva. The korban tamid of mincha had to be brought, so mincha is a chayva. But if Maariv is keneged, the burning of whatever leftover fats were not consumed, that wasn't a chiyuv, because if everything was consumed, you didn't have to burn anything. Memela, says the P'nei Yehoshua, the man diyamar that says tefillas arvis rishus is going like the opinion that that tefillas are connected to korbanos. And einochinami, the man diyamar that says that tefillas are because of the avos, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, would go like the man diyamar, tefillas arvis chayva. So says the P'nei Yehoshua, the question doesn't start. You asked me a question. If Yaakov Avinu was Masakin Maariv, why is Arvis a Rishus? The answer is, if you hold that Yaakov was Masakin Maariv, Arvis is a Chayva. Because the Mandi Amar that says Arvis is a Rishus is going like the Mandi Amar, Tfilas is because of Karbanos. This is actually a very, very logical answer. But it does not work according to the Rambam. And that is because the Rambam says in Hilchais Malachim that Avraham was Mesakein Shachris, Yitzchak was Mesakein Mincha, Yaakov was Mesakein Arvis. In other words, the Rambam follows the opinion that the tefillahs are because of the avos. That's in Hilchas Malachim. In Hilchais Tefillah, the Rambam paskins tefillas arvis rishus. So the P'nei Yeshua's teretz does not answer the Rambam at all. We're back to square one. How could the Rambam say Yaakov did Maariv when the Rambam paskins Maariv is optional? And therefore Rav Tzadok re-asks the question, because in the Rambam itself, the P'nei Yeshua's teretz is not going to be good. Right? Everyone understands that. So here is what, question, yeah.
Could you say that the reason why you brought the Shachas and Maariv Korban is because of Ambiguity of Yaakov, and then it's just because
I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty hearing you. Say again.
you say the reason why the Shachas and Maariv Korban was brought was because of Ambiguity of Yaakov, and then the reason why we do the three tefillahs is because of all three ways.
Yeah, but I suppose you're still going to have the same question, because the Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov action preceded the Beis HaMikdash. So why would we credit to Yaakov an optional ritual? In other words, you're still back in the Mikdash itself. You'd have the same question. You see. So here's what Rav Tzadok says. Rav Tzadok, this is a very beautiful machshava to think about in our own davening. Even though we daven the same Shemona Esrei, at least, for Shachris, Mincha, and Maariv, the emotional midah of the Shemona Esrei is supposed to be different. And there's a reason why these amidos are connected to times of day. You know, with the advance of electricity and lights, we don't have such a sense anymore of the different transitions. You know, light, day, you know, it's all the same. In fact, there are even books written about the fact how electricity in particular, and even earlier than that, gas lamps, changed the nature of night. Night, you go back. What was night like 300 years ago? What was night like in the time of the Gemara? Night was the end of things, you know. You didn't even go outside. I mean, that's why near Hanukkah, right? The laws of Hanukkah. You can only light a Hanukkah candle a half an hour after nightfall. Because after a half an hour, nobody was in the street. That's why the Ramah says, we can light the whole night, b'diavad at least, because everybody's around. Everybody's around because we have lights. When there were no lights, that was it. That was it. So we said like this. Now, ideally, when do you daven Shachris? The ideal zman of Shachris is Vasikin. That you begin, like we did Shavuos morning, you begin Shemona Esrei with the rising of the sun. So he says, as the Ramak says, the dominant emotion of Shachris is Chesed. Your margish Hashem's kindness in renewal, in giving you a new day, new opportunities, a new world. What Vasikin is actually doing is you're joining the new world in its praise of Hashem. That's why I've been critical a little bit of the way Vasikin is done today. Sometimes Vasikin, you know, it's a question of where your shul is, it's a windowless basement where you don't see the sun at all, and you're looking at an atomic clock that measures time in 1/100th of a second. And you're looking exactly, I remember I think I mentioned it before, I had to daven, it was my father's Alav Shalom's yahrzeit. So, and I had a doctor appointment regular time, so I went to a Vasikin minyan, which I should go, but I normally don't daven Vasikin necessarily. So I went to Vasikin, and no, they let me daven for the Amud. But they told me afterwards that I could never be chazan there again because I was like 1 second late. Now, Chazal didn't have clocks that measured time to that level of accuracy. What did Chazal do? Chazal looked at the sun. You look at the sun. And that's supposed to inspire you. You know, the sun is rising as if it's singing a song of praise to Hashem, and I'm joining. What's the pasuk of Vasikin? The pasuk in Tehillim, Yira'ucha im Hashemesh. We will have reverence for you together with the sun. Right? That's Vasikin. And overwhelmingly, the start of a new day, a neshama is margish, the chesed of Hashem in the Bria. And that's why Shachris is connected to Avraham Avinu, connected to Chesed. In fact, it's very interesting, just a little aside. Rav Tzadok doesn't mention this, but this is from the Meshech Chochmah. Did you ever wonder, it's a good question, why, all right, the Gra holds you're supposed to wear tefillin the whole day, that's emes. But most of us don't wear tefillin all day because we're not capable of proper machshava. But why do we only wear tefillin in Shachris? And those who wear a talis gadol, whether you're Sephardi, Yeki, or you're married and you wear a talis gadol during davening, why do we only put on a talis gadol for Shachris? Talis and tefillin are Shachris. Why not? All right, so Maariv, I understand. Maariv is already night. But why don't I put on a talis and tefillin for Mincha, like we do on Tisha B'Av? Right? Tisha B'Av put on tefillin for Mincha. Yeah, we actually do both. We put on talis and tefillin for Mincha. Why don't I do that the whole year? Once in a while, there's a bacher who wants to put on tefillin for Mincha, and there's no reason why I could tell the person he shouldn't do that. What's wrong? But I can assure you that if you try to put on tefillin Mincha, some Rebbe is going to tell you, I mean, not me, but some Rebbe is going to tell you not to do it. It's not done. Is that always a teretz? Sometimes it is. Sometimes the only answer that's given is, we don't do it. Okay, the CEDAR. I won't get into that particular issue. But why is it connected to Shachris? So here's what the Meshech Chochmah says. Do you remember when Avraham Avinu fought against the 4 big Canaanite kings? And Avraham Avinu rescued Lot and defeated those kings on behalf of 5 smaller kings. So the king of Sodom, Avraham was fighting for the king of Sodom then, said, Tein li hanefesh, give me the prisoners of war, and you take the spoils of war. So Avraham Avinu did not want to take the spoils of war. His language was, Im michut v'yad seruch now. I will not take a thread or a shoelace from you, so you shouldn't be able to say, you made Avram wealthy. I don't want to get my wealth from Rishayim. So the Gemara in Saita says the following. In the merit of Avraham Avinu saying, I'm not taking a string, Hashem gave us the mitzvah of tzitzis, strings. In the merit of Avraham Avinu not taking a leather strap, shoelace, Hashem gave us the leather straps of tefillin. So it turns out, this is really a very nice answer. So tzitzis and tefillin were given to us in the merit of Avraham Avinu, who said, Michut v'yad seruch now. And since Shachris is the prayer of Avram, if we're not going to wear it for the other tefillas, the tefillah that you choose is Shachris. That's why the Meshech Chochmah says, tzitzis and tefillin is connected to Shachris. Michut v'yad seruch now. But be it as it may, the dominant emotion of Shachris is feeling the chesed of Hashem. It is joy, it is gratitude, it is appreciation. Now, Mincha. If the ideal time for davening Shachris is Vasikin, sunrise, what is the ideal time for davening Mincha? So here maybe Rav Tzadok is following Chassidus a little bit. Mincha Gedolah, Mincha Ketana. So there actually is a passage in the Yerushalmi that says the ideal time of davening Mincha is before sunset, but it's shortly before sunset, as the lengthening shadows of the evening, meaning as it's beginning to get dark, you see shadows. Now again, Lamaisa, that's not our minhag. We want to do it earlier, but optimally the Yerushalmi says, Dimdume Chama. So he says, Mincha very much fits the life of Yitzchak. Yitzchak still lived in Eretz Yisrael. Yitzchak never left Chutz La'aretz. Yitzchak is living in day. Day is a remez to Geula, not Golos. But the lengthening shadows of night are beginning to come. For example, the 400 years of slavery begin with the birth of Yitzchak. Yitzchak is persecuted. Yitzchak is bullied. Yitzchak is made to feel this isn't your land. The wells that he got from Avram were filled up by the Plishtim. So it's Keneged Gevura, where the light of Hashem is still present, but it's not as powerful. Now that could be to our benefit, as I said before, but it also means we're living in a greater state of Hester Panim. So Rav Tzadok says, if the dominant emotion of Shachris is gratitude as you perceive the chesed of Hashem, the dominant emotion of Mincha is panic, where you're still receiving the chesed of Hashem, but you're afraid, you have a pachat, that things are slipping away. Panic. Now, Mincha, it's a very funny thing about Mincha. Mincha, you don't necessarily feel this in yeshiva, but Mincha, even externally, is a very panicky type of tefillah. because when you're not in a yeshiva environment, when you're in a working environment, mincha is often hard to fit in. Let's say you work, right? So shachris you daven before you go to work, and mincha, Maariv rather, you daven when you're home already. Mincha is the middle of the day. Now, if you're not in an office of from people, where do you daven? Do you have your own office? Sometimes you don't. You may be in the middle of a business meeting. The time for mincha is short. It's a shorter avenue. I remember in the days before cell phones were prevalent, if you would go to Penn Station in Manhattan, and those were the days of the phone booths. They used to have phone booths. I really don't know if they have phone booths anymore. And around Shkia time, every phone booth was taken up by an Orthodox Jew kind of wearing a hat who had a receiver to his ear. And really, he was davening. I mean, basically, he just was making believe he was making a phone call, and he would be davening, and sometimes if it was too long, people would be knocking at the phone booth. Get out of there, New Yorker, whatever, get out of the phone, phone booth and the like. And people were placing a phone call to God. Of course, in New York, it's long distance. Here, you can here you're zocher to do a local call, right? So it's a little easier here in Eretz Yisrael. Mincha is a time of panic. In fact, that's no joke, they say. That what is the definition of a relaxed Jew? When is a Jew relaxed? When I daven mincha and I'm milchik. I have no responsibilities on my head, so to speak. When I'm fleshik, I got to be aware of it. I have 6 hours past yet. Mincha is always a worry. Mincha and the like. So you see the idea that shachris is the prayer of simcha and gratitude. Mincha is the prayer of pachad and trepidation. Shachris is a reflection of Avraham Avinu's life, who was zocher to all of the chesed of Hashem. Yitzchak is already margish, the beginnings of Galus, the lengthening shadows of the evening. It's still light. And keep in mind as well that in the days before electricity, every time it was becoming night was kind of a panic, because you have to get things done before it's dark. After it's dark, it was very hard to do things. I mean, yeah, you always had candles, but it was hard. It's much harder. You couldn't work in the fields after dark. So there's that idea of pachad. As you're turning to Hashem and you're asking Hashem, please, Hashem, don't take these things away. Okay. So if shachris, this is from Rav Tzadok, if shachris is the prayer of gratitude and simcha as you feel Hashem's chesed, and mincha is the prayer of panic as I feel things slipping away, what is Maariv? So here's the thing. When did Yaakov masakin Maariv? So the Gemara in Brachos says this is when he's running away from Esav. And let's picture Yaakov Avinu when he's running away from Esav. Number one, although you wouldn't know this from the Chumash, but Rashi gives us a cheshbon, he was 63 years old. I mean, so was Esav. They were twins. He was not a young man. He had no wife. He had no children. Eliphaz, Esav's son, took away all of his wealth. He is totally poverty-stricken. Esav is threatening his life. Yaakov is running away, and Yaakov's physical survival is threatened. He's leaving the holiness of Eretz Yisrael. He will never see his mother again. He thinks he will never see his father again, although Yitzchak does live for many, many more years. But Yitzchak and Yaakov both think that Yitzchak is going to die very soon. And Yaakov is going to Chutz La'aretz, and Yaakov is going to a corrupt, immoral environment of Lavan. And Yaakov is afraid, because Esav destroys his body. Will Lavan destroy his soul? Shrek lecha pachad. And to kind of highlight the way Yaakov feels, in the middle of the day, it turns dark. Hashem made the sun set early. Yaakov is plunged into total darkness. And that's when he prayed to Hashem with Maariv. Now, it's true. He had a beautiful, beautiful dream of the ladder and Hashem speaking to him. But that's after he davened. after he davened, Hashem answered him. But when Yaakov davened, all there was darkness. All there was fear. All there was hopelessness. Yaakov's prayer was not the prayer of, I'm still in the light, but the shadows are lengthening. Yaakov's prayer is total darkness. B'derech hateva, Yaakov has no hope at all. So says Rav Tzadok, this chiddush. Again, if Shachris is the prayer of feeling the chesed of Hashem, and Yitzchak is the prayer of desperation, when you still have Hashem's blessings, but you're afraid they're slipping away, Maariv is the prayer of Emunah. Emunah, faith in Hashem, even in total darkness. Faith in Hashem, even when there's no logical reason to have bitachon. Again, I repeat, Yaakov did not have a vision of Hashem's promise until after he davened. When he davened, it was a pure act of faith for which Hashem had not given him any response. Emunah, Arvis, the prayer of Emunah, that even in total darkness, Hashem is with me. I don't be afraid. In fact, just derech agav, the agav, it reminds me by more or less free association of a little story the Babich Rebbe's mother used to say about her son when he was a 3-year-old, that he was climbing trees. Even great Gedolim climb trees, or Chaim Kanetsky, we have stories about climbing trees. So the Rebbe was climbing a very high tree as a little boy, and somebody said, aren't you afraid? Why are you climbing so high? So he said, as long as I look up, I'm not afraid. I'm only afraid if I look down. Now think about, almost prophetically, what those words represent. A person, there's a lot of things in life to be afraid of. A lot of things. But when you're focusing on Hashem, of course we have Yiras Hashem, yeah, but in terms of everything else, that gives me security, that gives me serenity, that gives me calmness. Hashem is in charge. When you're looking up, there's nothing to be afraid of. So, this is Maariv. Maariv is the prayer of Emunah. Now, Emunah does not mean everything will have a happy ending. There is tragedy in the world, but it means everything ultimately is for the good, even if in the short term it may be awful. But there's a meaning. There's a purpose. Maariv is the prayer of Emunah. That is why after the Kriya Shema of Shachris, we say, Emes v'yatziv. God's truth is firmly standing up. Because Shachris, the morning of life, things are light, things are beautiful, things are good. I see Hashem's chesed. At night, I say, Emes v'emunah. I don't always, the night is symbolic of Hester Panim. I don't see necessarily the chesed in the dark moments of life. But emunah, I have emunah that it's there. And that's the meaning of the pasuk in Tehillim. Tehillim Tzadik Beis, Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbos. Lahagid baboker chastecha. I declare your loving kindness in the morning. V'emunascha, and your faith, baleilais, at night. So there's a very, very famous Hasidic Vort. That morning refers to the parts of life that are joyous and happy. And when I have the mornings in my life, I declare Hashem's chesed. Leilos refers to moments in life that are very sad and despondent and difficult, I don't always see the chesed of Hashem. I don't always see it in those moments. Emunascha, which is translated, but my emunah in you will carry me through the night. So Maariv is emunah. The midah of Yaakov is emunah. In fact, given the fact that Tiferes is the combination of chesed and gevurah, perhaps we could tweak it a tiny bit and say that it takes Tiferes to be able to see that in the gevurah there is chesed. Meaning, combining chesed and gevurah, meaning I see the chesed in the gevurah. So now, let's go back to the question, because we haven't answered the question yet. And the question is, so why would Yaakov's prayer be optional? So here's what Rav Tzadok says. This is a beautiful chat. We think if something is optional, that's a sign that it's less important. Really, you could say the opposite. Anything that's an obligation is something that every bar mitzvah boy is expected to do. So, Shachris, which is gratitude for the chesed of Hashem, yeah, a 13-year-old should be able to say thank you for the chesed of Hashem. Mincha, which is pray to God when you're in trouble and things are slipping away, that's a basic idea. Arvis, Maariv, is a much higher madrega. To be able to feel Hashem when everything is hopeless, everything is dark, is such a high madrega that it's something we work towards, but we're not necessarily there yet. See his chap. His chap is the fact that it's optional means it's a madrega that we aspire to, but it cannot yet be concretized as an obligation. We call it midas chasidus. That's exactly what a midas chasidus is. As you grow in piety, you will reach that level, hopefully. But it can't automatically be expected of you. The basic gratitude of Shachris and the turning to God in times of trouble of Mincha, that is a madrega that every person can be expected to understand. Arvis is a much, much higher madrega. Yeah.
You're like Arvis, Yaakov, and then Torah. Is that a big part of the function of Torah? That Torah allows us, either by seeing that all things are from a good shorish, or through just being able to improve ourselves, that's what allows us to
Yeah.
committed to Hashem, even
Yeah.
though things are great.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. This is one of the kaichais of Limud HaTorah, which is connected to Tiferes, is that as you become closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you will see that even within the Gevurah there is Chesed, which is, in turn, that is what Tiferes is. Yeah.
How can we fit into this the idea of if someone wants to do a mitzvah they're not obligated in versus someone who does a mitzvah they're obligated in and they get more stars?
Yeah, so that already we have a svara from Tosfos in Maseches Avodah Zarah that looks at it from a simple psychological standpoint. He says, once you're obligated to do something, you become rebellious. Your Yetzirah is stronger. Meaning, I don't want to be told what to do. So the reason why you get more reward is not because intrinsically it's a greater mitzvah, but because you have greater resistance against it. It's a fascinating tosis that as soon as you have to do something, you immediately don't want to do it. Until you have to do it, you're perfectly happy to do it, right? You're about to take out the garbage to help your wife, act of chesed. As soon as your wife told you to take out the garbage, I don't like to be, told what to do, whatever it is. I'm not being autobiographical, right? Okay, but that's kind of how it works. But that would be the psychological explanation for that. Okay, we will finish tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to this Samayach production. To find out more and to partner in our mission, please visit ohr.edu.